But right now on the line with us is Andy Roth. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Club for Growth, clubforgrowth.org, the conservative think tank or conservative. How would you describe yourself, Andy?
We're an advocacy organization. We support lower taxes, limited government.
Okay, great. And you can tweet people at Andy Roth, ANDYROTH, or at Club for Growth, number 4. We could put this in the Donald Trump frame or not. It's one of the things that I find most fascinating about Trump's rise through the Republican Party is that he was basically campaigning as a Democrat. Democrats, which I think is why he won the Republican nomination. Democrats have fought every single trade agreement that has ever been brought before Congress. Every single one of them has passed with a majority of Republican supporters and a majority of Democratic opposers. And, this idea that Reagan had that we should just let corporations run trade in the world and forget about national interests took hold during the Bush administration. The first Bush administration, George Herbert Walker negotiated what became NAFTA, as you know, Andy. And we've been doing this experiment for 30 years. It seems to have worked out very well for China and Vietnam, and the rest of us. I'm not so sure. So the question, I guess, that I have for you is, what's wrong with protecting American jobs?
Well, because it doesn't work. The response would be to apply tariffs on imports,
right?
Which is one thing that Trump is.
You realize we're already doing that in over 20,000 categories.
Oh, sure.
It's just that the average tariff is less than 2%.
Right. What Trump is advocating is 35% or even higher.
Right, which takes us back to where it was before Reagan became president.
Right. We tried this back in the 1930s with the Smoot-Hawley bill, and I think, academic economists across the spectrum, liberal and conservative, believe that was a huge mistake. But the reason why it is a mistake is because tariffs are taxes, and this tax is not borne by the Chinese or whoever you levy the tariff on the import. It's borne by American consumers and American businesses.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's to the best of my knowledge, no consensus on Smoot-Hawley, regardless of what some conservative think tank has written on Wikipedia. There's no shortage of books about the impact or non-impact of Smoot-Hawley. Smoot-Hawley raised tariffs by 2%. From what, 31 to 33, as I recall, percent.
Well, no, it was on several things, and it was more than just 2% on.
Okay, but the point is that it had less than a 1% impact on U.S. trade. Less than a 3% impact on U.S. trade, and far less than a 1% impact on our GDP. And our tariffs at that point in time were in the 20 and 30% range, depending on the products. This was an idea that Alexander Hamilton came up with in 1791 in his report on manufacturers, submitted to Congress. In 1793, George Washington had implemented, either by executive order or by congressional action, most of it. The tariff income was the one single source of income for the federal government. So every paycheck of every senator, everything the federal government did from the founding of our republic until the Civil War was paid for with tariffs. From the Civil War until World War I, it was 50%. Excuse me, it was 2/3 of all government income was tariffs. From World War I to after World War II, it was 1/3 of government income, and it's been declining rapidly since World War II. But it worked. I mean, it built the greatest industrial powerhouse in the world. And China is using tariffs right now, and a whole variety of other things that could be called tariffs that aren't, just nakedly called tariffs. Germany is probably the worst offender in this. They use a VAT tax as a functional 35% tariff. They discount on export. They impose the tax on import. How nobody calls that a tariff, I don't know. Japan does it. Taiwan does it. South Korea does it. Basically, everybody that we're trading with, Canada and Mexico do it. Everybody that we're trading with is either using a VAT tax or some form of tariff, and we're the village idiots. And I don't understand why you think that protecting American jobs is a bad thing.
Well, what you're advocating, though, is for higher tariffs. And as I said,
that's correct.
That's a tariff that's borne on Americans. When you look at let's say the fight over steel. You know, we had the steel tariffs in 2002,
Yep.
and there are routine skirmishes between the Chinese and the United States.
Ronald Reagan raised tariffs on steel, too.
Right. When you raise,
and you know what that did is it saved a steel mill.
The problem is that it does benefit American workers who work in the steel industry, but it does hurt American workers who work in like the construction industry that rely on steel, or on the automobile industry that relies on steel. So when the government gets involved in these disputes, they're picking winners and losers among the American
You're absolutely
industries.
right. You're absolutely right, Andy, and that's what I'm advocating. I want my government to pick America as the winner. And I get it that you're saying that we should just, go with whatever the multinational corporations want. But I'd like America to be the winner. And frankly, yeah, you're right. If making steel in the United States is more expensive than making steel in China, and so we impose a tariff on Chinese steel, as you know, we're not going to buy Chinese steel and pay the tariff. We're going to buy steel made in the United States, which means that we're going to have more steel mills. We're going to have more people making good wages. Those people are creating aggregate demand and stimulating the economy. Our economy becomes more Americentric, more internal and less external, less worldwide. And that benefits American workers. Yeah, you might have to pay an extra $1,000 or $2,000 or maybe even $4,000 or $5,000 on the cost of a whole house that's spread out over a 30-year mortgage. It might cost you an extra 50 cents a month for the rest of your life for the cost of that steel. But you're making $30 an hour instead of $12.
You're dramatically overstating the cost or understating the cost. You know, everything that we buy from overseas would be dramatically more expensive.
You're absolutely right, and all of our wages would be dramatically higher.
Nobody could afford them because they wouldn't be producing them.
Then why could nobody afford them in the 1960s and 70s? Why could nobody afford them from literally from 1793 until 1980? If your assertion was accurate during that entire period of time, we would have all been sitting around going, oh, my God, I can't even afford a toaster because I can't get one that's made cheap in China.
The reason why things have gotten cheaper every year since the founding of this country is because of free trade. It's because of special aid.
No, it's because of technology.
And the division of labor and technology. I completely agree. All of those things have contributed to our success. Now, in our day and age, we have global supply chains that are so entrenched that for you to advocate that we should just build a wall around our country and create protectionism, I think is pure fantasy.
Well, I get it that you guys have had 30 years to put this into place, and you've got your nails in deep, right? I get that, and you're right. We have multinational supply chains for a whole variety of products. And it would be a disruptive process, just like it's been disruptive over the last 30 years. Hundreds of thousands, millions of good American jobs have vanished as a result of the policies that you're advocating. And bringing those jobs back will be a process that will involve disruption. But it seems to me like it's worth it. It seems to me like when the United States, we had a trade surplus from 1790. We had a trade surplus from 1793 until, 1986, I think was when we began running trade deficits. We literally, the entire world owed us more money than any country in the history of the world. We were the largest, when Ronald Reagan came into office, we were the largest importer of raw materials and exporter of finished goods on earth. When he left office, it had completely flipped. We had become the largest importer of finished goods, the largest exporter of raw materials, principally steel ore, coal, and wood, and the largest debtor in the nation. In the world, and it's simply gotten worse since then. How can you possibly defend that situation other than that it's incredibly profitable for the companies that are importing from China?
Well, listen, I strongly recognize that those who advocate protectionism believe that the trade deficit is this huge boogeyman, and I'm sure you know that those who advocate free trade don't think that it is. We can have a discussion about that, but
if we're going to go in debt to China $600 billion this year, they're going to end up with $600 billion. And what are they going to do?
Well,
they're going to come over here and they're going to
debt, which I do have a problem with, and that's a problem with the federal government and how it spends our money. I do have a problem with them buying.
This has got nothing to do with that. If we have a trade deficit, That means
they can do.
That means that they have
can
dollars.
Buy assets, they can invest in the United States, or they
That's
can
my
buy our
point.
debt.
And I don't want them, Andy, right now. Again, when Reagan came into office, foreigners owned less than 2% of the United States, right, of all U.S. assets. Right now, 1/7 of all assets in America are owned by foreign governments or foreign persons. 1/7. And the reason why is because for the last 25 years, 30 years, following the policies that you're advocating, we've been running up huge trade deficits, which means that all these people in other countries have dollars that they can only spend here. So they come here, they build a factory, they say, sure, I'll employ people like Jack Ma right now talking to Donald Trump. Oh, yeah, I'll create 1 million jobs in America. Where is the profit going to go from those jobs, Andy? It's going to go to China.
And I don't have a problem with it. You clearly do.
And I do.
The idea
I want that profit in the United States.
That's going to go to 100%, I think, is farcical. But listen, even if we do talk about all this, what you're advocating though is just pure lunacy, because you think that by raising
it was referred to by Alexander Hamilton as the American way.
Well, listen, if we want to get rid of all income taxes, everything, and just have tariffs, I'm totally on board with that.
Okay, well, that's a whole other conversation. Andy Roth, Vice President of the Government Affairs for the Club for Growth, clubforgrowth.org. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks for having me.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.